During the mid-18th century, the European countries were not as we know them today. Europe was divided into several small kingdoms and principalities. The concept of nation-states did not exist at all. Some of the prominent empires in Europe were the autocratic Ottoman Empire that ruled over Eastern and Central Europe and Greece, and the Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary. Due to the cultural differences amongst the European people, there was no political unity and no clear concept of a nation. However, the difference in cultural background and the desire to use the ideas of the French Revolution led people towards a common goal, nationalism. During the 19th century, the landed aristocracy was a small but influential class in Europe. This class dominated the social as well as political spheres and was desperately trying to regain its position. Members of this class all over Europe were connected to each other because of their similar way of life and intermarriages. They owned large estates in the countryside and townhouses. French was a common language spoken by them for diplomacy and high society. Interestingly, though, the majority of the European population was made up of peasants and serfs. In Western Europe, most of the land was tilled by tenants and small owners, while in Central and Eastern Europe, estates were cultivated by serfs. With the advent of industrialization in the late 18th and 19th centuries, new social groups came into existence. These were the working class population and the middle class. Both these groups depended on market production for their livelihood. The middle class had a free-thinking liberal mindset. The ideas of nationalism led them towards a far-fetched aim: to bridge the gap between aristocracy and other classes. They hoped to end the autocratic rule and wanted to form a national government of the people. The educated middle class of Europe was deeply influenced with the notion of liberty from the French Revolution. As a result, the concept of liberalism was born. The word liberalism traces its roots to the Latin word liber, meaning free. The middle class believed in the need for freedom and equality of all individuals before law. On the political front, liberalism referred to government by consent. The liberals also stressed that private property should not be violated. Although liberalism popularized the idea of a people's government, the right to vote or suffrage was not extended to all citizens. On the economic front, liberalism implied freedom of markets and free movement of goods and capital. The Napoleonic Code had tried to facilitate it. However, this code was not practiced in totality. Let's see why. During the 19th century, freedom of movement of goods and capital became a strong demand of the emerging middle class. The Napoleonic Code, though revolutionary for its time, was unable to address the growing needs of the industrialists. To complicate matters, each region had its own system of weights and measures. These situations posed encumbrances for economic growth and exchange. The middle class argued for the creation of a unified economic territory to facilitate unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. In 1834, a customs union, or Zollverein, was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. This union eliminated tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. Apart from this, a railway network was initiated, which enhanced mobility and communication between the economies. All these changes helped in the growth of nationalist sentiments. You have read earlier that during the 19th century, the upcoming middle class had tasted the ideas of liberalism. Liberalism was used by them as a tool to end aristocracy and clerical privileges. Another crucial event of this time was the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte at Waterloo in 1815. This steered the European governments towards adopting the idea of conservatism. Let us understand the term conservatism. It was a political philosophy that steered the importance of tradition, established institutions and customs, and preferred gradual development rather than quick change. The conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society, like monarchy, church, social hierarchies, property and family, must be protected and preserved. At the same time, they did not propose a return to the pre-revolutionary period. They firmly believed that the aristocratic monarchies of Europe could gain a lot from a modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, and the abolition of feudalism and serfdom. During his conquests, Napoleon had annexed several kingdoms and made them a part of France. In 1815, after the defeat of Napoleon, the representatives of European powers, namely Austria, Britain, Prussia, and Russia, met at Vienna. This meeting is also known as the Treaty or Congress of Vienna. The chief architect and host of this treaty was the Austrian Chancellor, Duke Metternich. The purpose of this treaty was to undo all the territorial changes that had taken place during the Napoleonic Wars and create a new conservative order in Europe. As a result, the Bourbon dynasty, deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. This was just to convey to the people that royalty and aristocracy was back and here to stay. Besides, France lost most of the territories it had gained during Napoleon's time. To prevent the expansion of France in the future, certain states were set up along the boundaries of France. Interestingly, the German Confederation of 39 states, set up by Napoleon, was not touched at all during this division. The conservative regimes set up through the Treaty of Vienna in 1815 were autocratic in nature. They tried to curb the freedom of expression and imposed censorship laws on newspapers, books, plays, and songs as they championed freedom. Let's now find out the reaction of the liberals to conservatism. The liberals were not happy with the autocratic ways of the conservatives. They raised their voice against the censorship of the press. After 1815, several liberals began working in secret societies all over Europe to propagate their views and train revolutionaries. The liberals, on the other hand, wanted to overthrow the monarchical structures that had been formed after the Vienna Congress. They realized that to overthrow the autocratic conservative order, the creation of nation-states was essential. The famous Italian revolutionary, Giuseppe Mazzini, was a man of such revolutionary ideas. He was part of a secret society called Carbonari. Mazzini founded two underground societies called Young Italy in Marseille and Young Europe in Bern. Mazzini believed in the unification of the small kingdoms and principalities in Italy. The period between 1830 and 1848